All right, the last type of thing we're going to find slope from is from 2 points. So let's write finding slope from 2 points. Okay, so example 1, let's have our 2 points. The first one will be the point 3, 6, and then the second one will be 8, 16. Okay, now for this one we're going to use the slope formula that we wrote down earlier, and that goes like this. Let's write it down again. Slope formula. It goes y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Now we have to know what those little numbers and everything mean. So it really doesn't make a big difference which point we consider to be our first point, but I'm going to consider this 3, 6 to be our first point. So I'm going to label it with a 1 and my 8, 16 to be my second point. I could have reversed that and it would end up the same in the end, but let's do it that way. Okay, so if 3, 6 is my first point, that means this 3 is the x value of the first point, so I call it x sub 1. The 6 is the y value of the first point, so I call it y sub 1. Then the 8 is the x value of the second point, so I'm going to call it x sub 2. 16 is the y value of the second point, so it's y sub 2. So now we know what these y sub 2's and x sub 1's and everything is, so we just plug everything into the place where it goes. So y sub 2 minus y sub 1 is 16 minus 6, and then that's going to be over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. That's going to be 8 minus 3. So notice I'm starting with a 16 and I'm subtracting the 6. And really that's just finding the change in y. It's saying how much of a difference is there between 6 and 16? Well, 16 minus 6 is 10. And then I'm doing, so I went this direction. I did y sub 2 minus y sub 1. Now I do x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So 8 minus 3, that's really saying what's the change in x from 3 to 8? That went up 5. 8 minus 3 is 5. So my rise is 10, my run is 5, and then I reduce that. And so that reduces to 10 divided by 5 is 2. So my slope for that, the line between those 2 points would be 2. 2 over 1, but we could just leave it as 2. Okay, second example, we're going to do a little bit tougher numbers. So let's do our first point. We'll call it point number 1. It's going to be negative 4, comma 12. And point number 2, let's call it, let's do negative 10, comma negative 20. Okay, so I'm going to label these. This is x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. And the formula goes y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Okay, so I'm going to take this number and subtract this number. So negative 20 minus 12. All right, over this number minus this number. Negative 10 minus negative 4. It's very important that you put both of these negative signs. So there's the minus, which is part of the formula, and then there's the negative that goes with the negative 4. All right, negative 20 minus 12. So picture a number line. If you start at negative 20 and you subtract 12, you're going 12 units to the left, which is at negative 32. And then negative 10 minus negative 4 is really the same as negative 10 plus 4. Subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive. Okay, so that's negative 32 divided by negative 10 plus 4 is negative 6. Okay, we need to reduce that. There's two things to think of when we reduce this. A negative divided by a negative is always a positive. So our answer is going to be positive. Those negatives both are not going to be there. And then 32 over 6, we can write that down. That reduces as well because those are both even numbers. So even numbers can be divided by 2. So if I divide top and bottom by 2, 32 divided by 2 is 16. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 16/3 is our final answer for that. So that is how you use the slope formula to find slope from 2 points.